Our next guest was born in New York City and made history by becoming the first African-American woman to serve as a press officer to a First Lady, Rosalynn Carter, wife of the Democrat President Jimmy Carter. And the two of them still exchange Christmas cards and photos of their grandchildren. She was also a volunteer in Barack Obama's presidential campaign to become America's 44th president. She has lived in Australia since 2016. Welcome to Outsiders, Barbara Heineback.
Good morning. How are you?
We're very well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Excellent.
And it's good to see everyone.
Good, excellent. Well, in the late 70s, you made history, as I mentioned, by breaking, I guess you could call it the white ceiling of the White House, and you became the first African-American woman to serve as a press officer to a First Lady. 30 years later, Barack Obama became the the first black president voted in twice. There are black mayors, black governors, black political figures at every level throughout the US. Are Black Lives Matter correct in saying that racism is endemic in the US, Barbara?
Racism has been around the world, I think, since man began. You know, we have to look at what's behind the racism in each country and work out ways where we can work together to change it. Endemic, I don't know. It has gone on in the States from the beginning of time. But what we need to do is to stop marching in the hot air and understand that Black Lives Matter has no real agenda other than trying to destroy the system of the United States, one of the most significant countries that have made a lot of progress, not the only one, but certainly one of the leaders of the Western world. And we've made a lot of mistakes too. But I'm so tired of just seeing people get up every morning and march uselessly when we ought to, and they have not been willing to talk about what sort of change do they really want. They say it started as, police brutality. I marched with them when they were a year and a half old. They started in 2013 just to see what it was about. And there's a lot of violence in these marches. But like you say, you won't hear the talk about the violence on most of mainstream media. What do we need to do? Are you going to give jobs? And you covered this very well in your opening, what you're doing here in Australia. But they need to be spending time in the U.S. talking about, are you going to give a person a job, a person of color? Are you going to provide opportunities for them to go up the corporate or the career ladder? Are you going to enhance and consider a person of color that's name might be different than yours, whose color of their skin might be different? They may have an accent, but they have equal credentials to maybe 2 or 3 of the other top candidates to break through the C-level or get to the executive offices within your company. And it doesn't really start with the jobs and labor, but it starts at home with education. And if I want more from others, I need them to, it starts with mom and dad, it starts with your teachers, your local communities to the state and federal. But we ourselves, Blacks and everyone else, have to take some self-responsibility.
Rita.
So why do you think, given Black Lives Matter, the movement's fairly radical agenda, so many of the Democrats, including the senior Democrats, have aligned themselves with this group? What's behind that?
I think what's behind that, Rita, is they're not talking about the problems. They haven't done anything to help Blacks in the last 4 or 5 years. And when I said done anything to help, they've made no progress as a party in the last 4 years other than trying to get rid of Donald Trump. But they figure if they align themselves with Black Lives Matter, then people will not vote for Trump. So it's totally political. But if it meant anything, then tell me why Joe Biden, who's been in politics 45, darn near 50 years, has done nothing to help Blacks. He's voted against voter rights. He's voted against integration in schools. years ago, and he has not done anything supportive. And the most egregious statement he's made lately, certainly not the only one, was he was interviewed about 3-4 weeks ago, and he said, and it was on a Black American program in the States, he said, and any Black who, he said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black, quote unquote. That's an insult. Now that to me is a strike of real racism. I'd much rather see someone like Donald Trump, who's gone into police reform. He's helped with Black colleges and he's agreed to offer and give money to these historic Black colleges and universities in the country. And we've had the lowest unemployment of Blacks, Latinos, and women since Trump has been in office than any president in recent years. The last president who really made change for Black Americans was President Johnson.
James.
With his civil rights reform.
Barbara, I just want to say it's great to have a fellow New Yorker here on the show this morning. But I wanted to take us back to New York here, and where our old hometown, they have seen ever since Bill de Blasio has started to pull back the police, got rid of that undercover police unit, the number of murders and shootings has gone through the roof. I think it's about 250% up on last year, and almost all of those victims are Black New Yorkers or Latino New Yorkers. And I'm just wondering, what do you think about this movement that, when you look at a lot of the protests, seems to have been hijacked by upper middle class white people, but seem to be calling for a defunding and a retrenchment of the police that seems to hurt minority communities first and foremost? I mean, if Black lives really mattered, you'd think that you would want to have more, not less, police protection in violent neighborhoods.
Of course, you're absolutely right, James. And what you see are especially the elder in these Black communities who are crying and begging for the police to come in because it's Black on Black crime. We saw a little 3-year-old baby get shot the other day. And you have more killings in Chicago, Illinois, by Black on Black crime, but no one wants to talk about that because it's political year, and then they're going to forget about it after the political year. It makes no sense other than it's a political ploy during the elections. It's like the Go ahead.
No, sorry, Barbara. I just on that, you actually volunteered for the Obama campaign. What's your take now after the Obama presidency? Were you pleased with it, disappointed at it? What was your reaction to it?
I voted for him twice, and I thought that he had what it took to be a good president. I understood why he wasn't making why he wasn't drawing out Black American situations and concerns as president, because he's president for the entire nation. What I don't understand and what's disappointing is, now after his presidency, and Obama came to Washington from Chicago. They're the ones who allowed him to become, or I don't want to say allowed, he earned it and worked for, becoming the president through the system and Congress. But then why hasn't he said anything? He refuses to talk about Black on Black crime, and you're having more murders in Chicago, Illinois over a week or a weekend than we did during the Vietnam War. He refuses to speak about it, and his first chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, he went back to Chicago to become mayor for 2 terms, and he too has done nothing, didn't even live in the Black community that he was serving. He was in a gated community, and Barack Obama's in Washington, D.C. now in a $9-point-something million home, and he doesn't talk about the concerns of Black on Black crime.
And just very quickly before we go, Barbara, what was Jimmy Carter like?
Wonderful man, wonderful man. And I really believe he's made a much better ex-president than president. And what he's done through moderating and through, Habitat for Humanity. And I've gone with him to several places around the world where he'll go in with a team and we get together and in a week build 100 houses. It is amazing the contribution he's made globally to mankind.
And your great friend, former First Lady Rosalynn Carter, what's she like?
Yeah, delightful, salt of the earth, and did a lot to give visibility, especially to mental health issues.
Excellent. Barbara Heineback, thanks so much for coming on Outsiders and sharing your memories and your insights with us. And we're so glad you're living in Australia now.
I too, and thank you for having me. Have a great day.